Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, and let me take this occasion to wish each and every Guyanese right across Guyana and, of course, the diaspora and wherever Guyanese are living. I want to say, if you're listening to this broadcast, I want to say season greetings and I wish you a healthy, happy, and prosperous 2021. When we got into government in very, very trying circumstances. You would recall that the COVID pandemic was at its highest, and we got into government without a budget. We got into government when the economy was very flat. All the productive sectors had declined or were declining. The country was devastated by 5 months of political turmoil. Um, and there was simply no economic activity going on in the country. Workers were not going to work. There was a sense of hopelessness and helplessness in the society. And our task was to invigorate, rejuvenate Guyana and Guyanese, energize the economy, bring enthusiasm back, bring hope back to Guyanese. And we began from day one to work towards achieving these objectives. Immediately, we started to work on a budget. In our campaign promises, we had promised that we will reverse all the tax measures that were imposed by the last administration, that we will remove VAT from water, electricity, agricultural equipment, construction materials, healthcare products, educational materials, all of which were VAT free prior to the 2015 elections. And when the other government came into power, they imposed VAT on all these items. We also promised to reverse all the increases in fees and charges and licensing fees that were imposed by APNU AFC coalition government. That include hundreds of licensing fees and fees to be paid for public documents, passports, birth certificates, death certificates, driver's license, shop licenses, gun licenses, all those licenses, the fees were made astronomically high, and we promised that we will reduce those. And when we passed our budget, we did exactly that. In a series of budget measures, we truncated and demolished all these new charges, including, of course, one very important to the farmers, land rents for state lands, and drainage and irrigation charges, and rents for rice lands leased by the MMA and other state agencies. Those were raised from $3,000 to $15,000 per acres. And in our budgetary measures, we slashed all of that and reverted it to status quo ante the coalition government. In other words, we put it back to where they were in 2015 when we were in government. And of course, we gave free electricity to pensioners and free water to pensioners. Those measures alone unleashed $80 billion into the economy immediately. What this means is that the Guyanese citizens had $80 billion more of disposable income that would have been taken from them by the government. We virtually give it back to them by these measures. So without any single salary increases or any decrease in prices of commodities, Guyanese became $80 billion richer they could have spent $80 billion more that they could not have spent the month before. And that is the difference. So that's the first set of relief measures that we put in place in recognition of what the economy was going through, what Guyanese went through, but what were exacerbated by a COVID pandemic and a public health disaster never witnessed before, never experienced before, within a living memory. We are faced with the worst public health disaster the world has seen in mankind's history. So, taking all of that into account, we decide to implement these measures. Then, in addition to those, we gave school cash grants for school children, which we promised. We distributed uniform vouchers for school children, which we promised. We also, at the same time, rewarded our frontline health workers with a special bonus. We gave our discipline forces a special bonus. And then we shared out another COVID relief measure, $25,000 per family right across the length and breadth of this country, in every region, to every family, even if there are more than one family living in one house. We made sure that every family, as far as possible, benefited from this measure. That singular initiative costed the government some $5 billion. And if that, all of that were not enough, at this late moment, Government of Guyana has extended another measure. That is to pay every public sector employee $25,000 as another measure to help cope with the challenges presented and associated with the COVID pandemic. This $25,000 will go to every public sector employee, meaning every public servant, every teacher, every discipline forces member, every staff of a public corporation, meaning GAISUCO, GGMC, and all these agencies, all statutory agencies of government, like the Deeds Registry Authority, the GGMC, the Forestry Commission, etc., all of them. Public corporation also includes, of course, the Public Hospital Corporation, and sugar workers, being workers of Guyana Sugar Corporation, another public corporation. So right there, thousands of sugar workers are also the beneficiaries of this measure. And the staff of the parliament, for example, as an arm of government, the judicial staff, and importantly, the judicial officers are benefiting too. Perhaps, as far as I'm aware, it's the first time that judicial officers at the level of the magistracy and the judiciary, meaning the High Court and the Court of Appeal, and of course the commissioners of title, will benefit from a bonus of this type. I emphasize that to say that in excess of 60,000 families will again benefit from this initiative. And this will cost the government $2 billion more. But government thought it best and in the people's interest that they should have as much as government can afford to assist them to cope with the challenges, the demands, and the peculiarities that they have to face in this pandemic and in this trying public health environment. Perhaps I should say at this point in time that the only category of persons who may not be benefiting, or I think who are not benefiting from this measure in the public sector, would be ministers of the government. Contrast that with the approach of the previous administration when they raised their salaries by 100% to the exclusion of everyone else. And if this, by this one example, I believe persons can judge the difference in philosophy, in mentality, in thinking, and of course by deeds and policies, judge the two governments. On the one hand, you have one that took a humongous salary increase only for themselves. And you have, on the other hand, a series and a plethora of policies and measures that have gone to the population, from which ministers are not necessarily benefiting. In fact, are not benefiting. And that, in my view, is a significant observation that one should make. I am not saying it because I want to blow my own trumpet or I want to blow the government's trumpet. We don't need that in our government. We depend upon our track record. We depend upon our actions. We depend upon our policies. We depend upon merit, not upon, compliments from anyone or from ourselves. So I think that this is a spectacular measure, most needed by our people at a most trying time. And I want to commend His Excellency the President for leading this initiative. I want to commend His Excellency our Vice President, who I'm sure would have played a pivotal role, and of course our Minister of Finance, who would have been part of this decision-making process. I think that it is a remarkable gesture to make at this point in time, and I want to tell our Guyanese people that in the year 2021, we have a lot of good things to look forward. We are completing our budgetary preparations, and we have a very, very exciting year ahead, a very challenging year, but exciting in terms of what it holds for Guyana and its development and its people's advancement. Once again, I want to conclude by wishing all Guyanese Merry Christmas, well, that's gone now, season greetings, and an exciting, happy, and most prosperous New Year come 2021. Thank you very much.